This is a very common, often tied fly. It is a gold-ribbed hare's ear nymph, but it is also the next fly in Ed Story's handout, Missouri Trout Flys, How to Tie and Fish Them. So here it is. I am tying it on a number 14 3x long bent shank nymph hook, putting some weighted wire on it. Weight the nymphs according to how deep you want them to fish. I'm using brown thread. I'll wrap it in at the front of the hook and then try not to let that wire migrate to the back too much, and take my wire to the back of the weighted wire and build a little dam there to make sure that it stays in place. Clip off my tag. The tail on this fly is hair mask, and it's the fibers from between the ears, these nice long ones. See if I can find one that's got some white tips on it, and I'll just clip a piece of that out. So I have a little pinch of it. I'm going to grab the tips and pull out the fluff from underneath. I'm going to save that and mix that in with the dubbing for the body, and then measure. Is it a little bit less than a hook shank? Now these flies, they're so often tied and so many variations possible. Make them as smooth as you want, make them as shaggy as you want, make that tail as long as you want. Bring that down to the start of the bend there. The butt ends here, can leave them. I'm going to be dubbing over that, but I find that they do kind of get in the way, so I'm just going to go ahead and clip those out. Ed Story's recipe calls for either oval gold tinsel, or for gold wire. He says the gold wire on the smaller flies and the gold tinsel on the larger flies. I don't know exactly why that, but I'm going to tie in a piece of gold wire. For the rib, it is a gold ribbed hare's. So then I have some of this cheek hair, and really concentrating on the bottom parts of the hair where it's the fluffy stuff. I don't want guard hairs or the longer surface hairs for the body, and I will be cleaning that up as I wrap over it with the wire. But twist that onto my thread for dubbing, and then wrap that up over the body. Keep twisting it so that it's tight, and I want to go up just past the halfway point on the hook. Leave plenty of room for thorax and wing casing, and a little bit taper, it's fine. See if I can get that to lay down. Alright, and then I'm going to counter wrap counter wrap is the other way, isn't it? Over the top. Counter wrap that wire so that it lays on top of the body fur. And then I'll catch it off there. Wrap up over that wire a few times, and then wrap underneath of it. And then I can hopefully helicopter, not hopefully, I will Eventually, it'll helicopter off. Just bend it back and forth in circles until that tie-in point weakens and breaks off. And then I can come in and just trim up. I don't want all these on this particular one. I don't want it a fuzzy body. I just want it to be pretty clean. But again, you can tie it fuzzy, you can tie it clean. The wing casing is wild turkey, and I'm going to cut a piece off that's about the width of the hook gape. If you want to get real particular, you can measure that, but then I'm going to tie it in with the dull side up, and I'm going to lay that a little bit on the front of the shank, and that way when I wrap up over it, it's going to tie in right on top of the hook shank so that that wing casing is right on top. And then I'm going to wrap back into the body so that I don't have too much of a gap there. Create a dubbing loop. I have a dubbing spinner. I'm going to put that on my thread and come up, and to tie that in, I'll wrap once and then go around, and then I'm going to take my thread out in front up behind the eye, put a half hitch on that so it doesn't come off, and grab my cradle so I can get that out of the way. Then I'm taking some more cheek. I'm going to actually just cut off a strip of the cheek hair, and this time I do want both the fluff and the longer hair. So I don't know, this might be too much, we'll see. But I need to split my thread, open it up, take this piece of cheek hair and put it into the dubbing loop. See if I can pull those out a little bit. And then spin my spinner, and that's going to spin those cheek hairs into that, between those two threads in my dubbing loop, to create the dubbing for the thorax. And then all those long hairs, those will actually become the nymph legs, and they'll be pushed down when I put that wing casing up over the top. So the hardest part of this fly is actually now wrapping that dubbing up over the top, trying to keep that thread from coming undone on my spinner and not getting all caught up in my other thread. Push back, keep that eye clean, and I think I'm going to pull out some of this stuff on the bottom here. And again, you make this as buggy as you want, or as clean as you want, by how much thread you put in your, or how much cheek material you put in your dubbing loop. Okay, so then I'm going to wet my fingers and pull back on all that material to clean up the eye. Lift that on top, and then I'm going to, this is, finger gymnastics here. I'm going to wind in some of my thread on my bobbin, and then bring my bobbin up over that dubbing loop thread, catch that in, then I can take it off of the spinner. Again, wet my fingers, pull back on all of that, and wrap up over the end of that so I make a space to tie in the wing casing. Try to keep that eye clean, and I can clip out the dubbing loop thread. Just kind of clean it up a little bit, pull out all the loose stuff, and then again wet my fingers and push down from the top so that that wing casing will lay up over the top of that. Pull that wing casing forward, pull back and down on all the thorax material, and grab all of that together and then wrap up over the top of that. Try to keep that on top of the hook shank. Okay, some good tie-in wraps. Lift it up, wrap underneath of it. Clip out the extra wing case material and then wrap the head. And whip finish it. Clip out my thread. That doesn't look too bad for clean around the eye. There's a little bit of stuff there, but I'm going to put some diluted goop just on the head. That way I can have that knot glued and it stays liquid long enough for me to grab a hackle feather and put it down through the eye. If I can get a feather through that eye, then I know that it's clean enough to get a tippet in there. But then I want that wing case hardened, so I could just use that same goop, or I could use some other product, but what I'm going to do is put some UV resin on that wing case. I think that's a good way to get a nice hard case. Put my UV light on it, let it harden up, and then this is what it looks like from the top. So the very classic gold rib hare's ear nymph.